This is Pre-Algebra Chapter 1.7, Multiplying and Dividing Integers. The first issue we must consider when multiplying integers is the signs. The product of two integers with the same signs will always be positive. For example, if we multiply two positive numbers by one another, our answer will be positive. If we multiply two negative numbers by one another, our answer will also be positive. The product of two integers with different signs is negative. For example, if we multiply a positive number by a negative number, our answer will be negative. Or if we multiply a negative number by a positive number, our answer will once again be negative. And finally, if we multiply any integer by 0, the answer will always be 0. Let's work these sample problems together to solidify these rules. In problem A, -3 times -12 gives us an answer of 36. We have the same signs, so our answer will be positive. In problem B, -7 times 9 gives an answer of -63. We have two integers with different signs, and therefore our answer is negative. And finally, in problem C, -24 times 0 yields an answer of 0. Any integer times 0 is always 0. Let's use what we've learned about multiplying integers to address this word problem. You own shares of stock in a computer company and in a utility. The value of the shares changes over time. The table shows the number of shares of each type of stock you own and the change in the value of each share over a 1-year period. What was the total change in the value of your shares of stock? In this next example, we're going to see how to multiply integers to answer this question. In this example, we're asked to find the total change in the value of our shares of stock. In order to calculate this, we're going to first multiply the number of shares of each type of stock by the change in the price of each share. Then we'll add the results. So our total change will equal the number of shares of computer stock, that's 200, times the change in value, which is -3. The value decreased by $3. Now we're going to add this to the change in the utility stock. So we have 150 shares of utility stock that we will multiply by 2, as the value increased by $2. Now we multiply 200 times -3 yields an answer of -600, plus 150 times 2, which gives an answer of 300. -600 plus 300 gives a final answer of -300. So the total change in value of our stock was a decrease of $300, -$300. Now let's work with dividing integers, and we'll begin with sign rules. The quotient of two integers with the same sign will always be positive. If we divide a positive number by a positive number, our quotient is positive. If we divide a negative number by a negative number, our quotient is also positive. In Rule 2, we see that the quotient of two integers with different signs will be negative. So, dividing a negative number by a positive number yields a negative quotient, and dividing a positive number by a negative number yields a negative quotient. Finally, the quotient of any integer and 0 is 0. 0 divided by 4 would be 0. 0 divided by -4 would be 0. So the quotient of 0 and any non-zero integer will always be 0. Let's move on to some sample problems. In our first example, we're finding the quotient for two integers with negative signs. -48 divided by -6 gives a quotient of 8. Remember, our answer will be positive because our signs are the same on both integers. 56 divided by -8 in problem B will yield an answer of -7. Remember, if our signs are different, there's an imaginary plus sign here and a negative sign here. If our signs are different, our quotient will have a negative sign. And finally, in C, 0 divided by 9 equals 0, because the quotient of any non-zero integer and 0 will always be 0. Now, test what you've learned on these 8 problems working on your own. These problems each ask you to multiply or divide 2 integers. Pay attention to the sign rules. Press pause to do your work, and I'll be back with one final word problem to close out this lesson. Let's finish learning about multiplying and dividing integers with this word problem, which asks us to use what we've learned to find a mean. The table here shows record low monthly temperatures from June to November at McMurdo Station in Antarctica. Find the mean of these temperatures. In order to calculate the mean, we first have to add all of the temperatures together, then divide by 6, which equals the number of temperatures. When the 6 negative digits in the numerator are added together, we reach an answer of -264. -264 is then divided by 6, giving us an answer of -44. So the mean temperature is -44 degrees Fahrenheit. Brr. All right, thanks for learning about multiplying and dividing integers. Tomorrow we'll do some practice problems to seal this concept into our brains.